Go.
Hi everybody, it's Miss McKinney. I'm here in the de-escalation room. We're going to do our science lesson today. Today we're learning about unicellular and multicellular organisms. Those are big words, but don't freak out. Cell meaning the cells in your body, multi means many, so an organism with a bunch of cells like us. And then there's things called unicellular organisms, which are organisms that are only one cell, so you can only see them in a microscope. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to read it. I'm going to go over the questions with you. What I want you to do to get your grade is you're going to drop the answers in the comments down below, okay? I sound like a YouTuber, but it's fine. All right, so we're going to start on page 1. It's in a PDF that is linked in this assignment. So you just need to click on it. You don't need to worry about printing it. So it says, plants and animals are made up of millions of tiny parts called cells. Many other living things are made up of only one cell. So is that going to be multicellular or unicellular? It's going to be unicellular. Yet both types of living things carry out the basic process of life. Cells. Cells are the basic building blocks of all living things or organisms. A cell is the smallest part of a living thing that can carry out all the processes of life. For example, cells take in nutrients, which is the materials they need to live and grow, so that would be our food, is what we get our nutrients for. They also get rid of waste, which are materials they can't use. We don't need to talk about that in humans. Most cells are too small to be seen without a microscope. You can observe the shapes of some plant cells through a hand lens, so one of those microscopes you hold by the hand, or more, it's not really a microscope, it's just a magnifying glass. But you cannot see the tiny structures or parts inside each cell. So each cell has little parts in it that run these functions. They learned that scientists learned about cells after microscopes were invented. They learned that cells contain even tinier structures. These tiny structures perform different jobs or functions to keep that cell alive. So you can think of a cell like an ecosystem, which we just learned about. Everything has a job. A job in the ecosystem is called a niche. Don't forget that. All right, unicellular organisms, one cell. A unicellular organism is made up of only one cell. These single-celled organisms include bacteria, amoebas, and others. Remember, we learned about those when we learned about parasitism I guess it's gonna be like 3 weeks from now when you guys watch this. They move, find food, and grow. They also reproduce or make more organisms of their own kind. However, not all single-celled organisms have the same structure, so they look a little different. Bacteria are a very large group of single-celled organisms. They are much smaller than the cells that make up plants and animals, so they're tiny, tiny, tiny. An amoeba is another kind of single-celled organism. An amoeba eats by surrounding the food particle and then bringing the food into the cell. It moves by changing its shape, so it kind of moves like a blob, if you can think about that. And it should be in your PDF as well, but there's a picture of an amoeba and it's surrounding the food particle. This is a euglena. A euglena is a single-celled organism with a whip-like part that moves it forward, so it's kind of got a tail that whips around. A paramecium has many like little hairs, if you think of like a centipede with all its little legs, that help it move. The paramecium also uses those little hair-like legs to help it take in food. A paramecium is large enough that you can see it with your eyes, but it will look like a tiny speck. So you can actually see this one without a microscope, but you can't see all the details. So here's a euglena with its little tail that whips around and helps it move. And then here's the paramecium with those like centipede-like legs that help it move. Paramecia and most bacteria must take in food, but some single-celled organisms use sunlight to make food. Can anyone think of any of those? What are they called in a food chain if they use sunlight? They're called producers. Very good. I know you might not have answered that, but you get my point. They include algae, the single-celled algae, which we all know are very important in our ecosystems and our food chains. That's what most things start with, especially our aquatic ecosystems like freshwater, estuaries, which are where freshwater and saltwater mix. All living things must get rid of waste and reproduce. Single-celled organisms remove waste by moving them to the outside of the cells. They reproduce by splitting themselves into two cells. The new organism is a copy of its parent. Yes, Dylan, just like cloning. So we're gonna move on to multicellular organisms, okay? So this will be like, I don't know if it's gonna go into as much detail as like you and me, but we are multicellular, we're not just one cell. So almost all single-celled organisms are microscopic. You can't see them without a microscope. They're too small, oh, that's what it says right there. The plants, animals, and other living things you see around you are multicellular. A multicellular organism is made up of more than one cell. Multicellular organisms are more complex, so it's like humans, dogs, fish, trees, all those things are multicellular. A multicellular organism is made up of different kinds of cells. So this shows some different cells in the human body. That's a nerve cell, red blood cells, bone cells, muscle cells, fat cells. Each kind of cell does a different job. Each has a shape and structure that helps it do its job. Those are like adaptations in animals, if you remember that from ecosystems. So if you look at the nerve cell, much of the cell is long and thin like a telephone wire. And its job is to send information, so it needs to be long and thin like a telephone wire. Group of cells in the same type work together to perform certain functions. For example, muscle cells work hard to pump blood. So they all kind of work together. One-celled organisms take in materials directly from its surroundings. They give off waste in the same way, so they take it in, they put it out. But in plants and animals, only surface cells can take in nutrients or give off waste. Plants and animals must have systems for moving materials throughout their body. A system is a group of parts that work together. Many plants have tubes that carry water. The blood cells in your body carry oxygen and nutrients. So then it says in the next lesson you're going to learn about human systems. We're not quite there yet. We'll get there soon. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our discussion questions. So it says, how do bacteria compare with humans? A, both are unicellular. B, both are multicellular. C, only bacteria are multicellular organisms. Or D, only humans are multicellular organisms. So remember in an EOG, you want to read the question twice. We're going to read it again. How do bacteria compare with humans? So let's go through our answers. A, both are unicellular. Is that true? Are humans unicellular? Absolutely not. So we're going to mark that one out. B, both are multicellular. Are bacteria multicellular? Absolutely not. Mark that one out. C, only bacteria are multicellular. Not true. Mark that one out. That leaves us with D, but let's read it to make sure. Only humans are multicellular. Well, when compared with bacteria, that would be true. So we're going to circle that one. So your first answer for number 1 is D. Make sure you type that in so that you can get credit for this assignment. Number 2, using tubes made up of cells is one way plants A, transport water, B, make more organisms of their own kind, C, transport blood cells, or D, take in nutrients and make food. Let's read it again. Using tubes made up of cells is one way plants. And if you want to go back in your text, I want you to think about plants. Are plants unicellular or multicellular? We know they're multicellular. So I'm not going to look in the unicellular part of this reading. I'm going to look down here in the multicellular part, okay? So if you need to go back, go ahead and do that. So do they use it to transport water throughout the organism? I would think so. So we're going to put a question mark there. B, make more organisms of their own kind. They don't reproduce that way, so we're going to say no. C, transport blood cells. Do plants have blood? No. Mark that off. D, take in nutrients and make food. I can see how you would say that. So I'm going to look back in my text really quick at the multicellular part. And it's talking about systems, and it says many plants have tubes that carry water and nutrients. So it says carry, not take in. So we're going to choose A as transport, because carry and transport kind of mean the same thing. Choose A. Make sure you type that in. Number 3, which of these is not made up of one or more cells? So if it's not made up of one or more cells, it's made up of one cell. So we need to think about something that's unicellular. A, a rock. Unicellular, I can see that without a microscope. B, a paramecium. Maybe. We'll put a question mark there. C, an earthworm. Absolutely not. I can see that without a microscope. D, a fern. I can definitely see that without a microscope. So we're gonna go circle B, a paramecium. Last one, which of these is a unicellular organism? Same question. A goldfish? No. B, a seaweed? No. C, an amoeba? Okay, we're gonna put a question mark there. Or D, a tree? Can you see a tree? You sure can, so no. So the answer is C. All right, that's it for this science lesson. If you have any questions, please comment below and I will answer them. Have a good day.